Chapter 85. The Words That Reached. Saint Demon Confrontation Arcade. Storm Dragon Veldora has been resurrected. This report caused a great panic within the Western Saints Church. The connection that was lost with the defeated team was quickly discovered. They were strictly ordered to report at regular intervals, so a loss of connection indicated some hardship. So upon hearing this report, Hinata immediately decided to set off to Tempest. But, at that moment came the surprising news of Storm Dragon Veldora's resurrection, which resulted in Hinata, who was preparing to set off, to be summoned by the Holy Empire Rubarian's most prominent officials. The 7 celestial sages these wise men are called. It is said that each has surpassed a hero-class existence and is a legendary being that is often in charge of rearing new heroes. These beings are completely isolated and never appear in public, and are only discussed as legends in fairy tales and other such stories. Nor are the 7 celestial sages in existence that Hinata could talk about. Apparently, they are not an existence that the Templar Knights would know about. So why does he not know of them? Because she is the last disciple of the 7 celestial sages. They typically train their descendant personally, and no one knows when the successor takes over. In other words, the fact that they all trained one person is beyond unusual. Hinata was just that excellent. And because she was so exceptional, she was able to learn all the skills and battle abilities that they could teach her. In a sense, you could call her a work of art. Few people from the Holy Empire of Rubarian could order Hinata around. In other words, you could even say that all power was vested in her. After receiving her post from her predecessor, she began her reign in the top classes of the country. Who could order her? The current emperor and the 7 celestial sages. Furthermore, only the 7 celestial sages can directly meet with the emperor, so Hinata has never met him. Nor has she even heard this voice. Which is why, when discussing beings who can order her, only the 7 celestial sages remain. This time, she was called directly by them via telepathy. And she was told about Storm Dragon Veldora's reawakening. Thus, though she had prepared troops to set off to Tempest, she decided to put that order on hold. As a result, her attack on Tempest while Rimuru was away did not occur. Which was fortunate. Had she attacked Tempest along with her Knights Templar while he was away, there's a high chance the battle would have went in her favor. Anyways, Monsters Country Tempest closely escaped death. Was this a failure on Hinata's part? By no means. What surprised her, that is, wasn't only the report she received from the sages. As a messenger she sent to Tempest, Rihim has returned. But his appearance was completely different. A thin layer of dirt and tattered clothing covered his body. His eyes rushed and his body violently shaken. He looked as if he tasted unthinkable fears. 100 trusted Knight Templars guided Rihim into the main chamber. Cardinal Nicholas also came to hear his report. Rihim was brought into the compartment as he was. He was offered to change, but he adamantly declined. And insisted that he had urgent information that had to be shared. Thus he stood in the main compartment, inside the towering cathedral in the center of the Holy Empire Rubarian. In all of the Empire, this was the most holy and secure place. And there he knelt. Hesitantly, he lifted his face to confirm Hinata's presence. He seemed a little relieved seeing her there. And then he stood, his appearance quickly turning into even a deeper misery. Rihim removed the ragged clothing that covered his body. Seeing what was beneath, the Templar Knights covered their faces. Even Hinata looked repulsed. Everyone's gaze was focused on Rihim's exposed body. As a myriad of faces were bulging from it. Still alive, some showed tormented expressions, others of misery. There were even some mad ones smiling. As if mocking the holy land upon which he stood. First, behold my body. It is the punishment for evoking their king's wrath. I was a fool. A truly frightening enemy I have made. A demon lord. By our hand we gave birth to a new demon lord. Perhaps even proudly, Rihim declared in a loud voice, his eyes sore. And thus he told them of the frightening demon lord and his birth. Without hiding any of Rihim's offenses. He was not ordered to do so. Rather, he himself was obsessed to reveal all this. to free himself from the torment, to be forgiven by God. He thought he needed to admit his sins. But surely he could not be forgiven with just this much. The Templars shaken upon hearing of a new demon lord's birth. And when they heard about his ridiculous power, they could no longer hide their surprise. Before his light attack, every anti-demon barriers, large-scale magic barriers, and even holy barriers are completely useless. And none have ever heard of such magic. If faced with an attack that cannot be obstructed, even those gathered in the room could not survive it. Perhaps. But Hinata did not tremble. Based on what Rahim reported, it was an attack that used the rays of the sun, she figured. And if you understand the nature of the attack, it's easy to counter it. Seeing this, Hinata reassured the Templar Knights. Thus, they calmed down. If their commander Sakaguchi Hinata did not fear the Demon Lord, then there was no chance they would be defeated. Their confidence was directly tied to their unwavering faith in her. The report continued. The news that Archdemon had appeared again triggered a disturbance. This wasn't something they could disregard any longer. It is absolutely critical that an Archdemon, which harbors the Demon Lord's seed, be immediately destroyed. Besides, if it was a simple Archdemon that was born depending on abilities, 3 Knights Templar should be able to terminate it. And if they brought 5 Knights, there was no way they could lose. But this would prove difficult if they allowed it to continue existing and gathering experience. They had to destroy it now. Such was the rule regarding dealing with an appearance of an archdemon. Hinata, this is an urgent matter. My team will defeat this demon. Please order us. In that case, we shall also go. Please order us to attack. The young Templars screamed, following their elder's example. The others too, in lieu with common sense, did not oppose the measure. After all, the sooner they defeat the archdemon the better. But Rahim's story did not end. He still had things to say. Rather, he hasn't even revealed the main points yet. But the Templars could not have known of this. Which is why they could discuss such pointless things as defeating an archdemon. Please wait a moment. Do not pay any heed to the archdemon defeat. The light magic I mentioned. As I just said, when it hit us, we were completely wiped out. However, that doesn't portray the scene appropriately. There were 15,000 of us. And this elite force was completely destroyed by a single monster's terrifying attack. I meant that literally. Not as an army, but every single individual. Slaughtered. That's no exaggeration. That's exactly happened. Silence encircled that holy room. A heavy atmosphere in which no one could utter a single word. A demon lord which could massacre 15,000 men. It made them recall a certain legend. A legend speaks of a monster which became a demon lord after terminating a city. Truly, the monster fit the description of the word demon lord. The monster sowed commotion and destruction. Beings that surpass human capabilities are usually limited to the special S-class dragons. Currently, 3 of them remain and 1 has been sealed until now. These 3 beings are designated special S-class. But in reality, it wouldn't be unusual to recognize 2 more special S-ranked individuals from among the demon lords. The reason they are not recognized so is simple. They were mostly active before the church has been formed and have yet to produce any further causalities. In other words, should they resume their rage, they will be recognized as special S-ranked beings. They will be recognized as a being that cannot be crushed by human hands. That's what special S-rank means. As for their activity before the church had been recognized, that's a tale of 1,000 and a few hundred years ago. According to traditional records, it would have been 1,200 years ago. Even then, 2 beings called Demon Lords, and which would now have been recognized as special S-rank existed, Lord of Darkness Guy Crimson and Destroyer Milim Nava. Furthermore, some believed that other Demon Lords awakened as true Demon Lords, but none of these openly wrought havoc. Which is why, in order not to increase the people's worry for no reason, every Demon Lord has been classified as S-ranked. A being that can't be opposed with human strength alone. Because when a generation lacks a hero, they had to declare that humanity would not lose against demons. But, this new monster, just became a demon lord, but may be instantly recognized as a special S-rank. Heavy silence continued to rule the room. A silence which showed a desire to reject accepting the birth of a new demon lord. Simple demon lords and true demon lords are an existence that towers over humans. But it's pointless to stand here in silence. Hey, Rahim. Did you see it awaken? Ending the silence, Hinata asked. In response, yes. I believe an offering of 15,000 lives was enough. He replied, confident. Is that so? Hinata muttered and began to think. As things stood, she was fortunate not to have gone to Tempest yet. If her enemy wasn't awakened, if he turned into a true demon lord, then the number of troops didn't matter. Even if you gathered powerful soldiers, should they lack the strength to oppose that monster directly, then they are useless. The defeated army's tragedy only proved this point. Furthermore, even though the monster hasn't awakened by then, it was still capable of destroying the army alone. From time immemorial, a hero and her carefully selected team would venture to defeat the demon lord. And since that's the case, I guess I'll have to go, huh? She muttered. If the opponent is a demon lord, Hinata would have to go herself. And since there was no need to further increase the number of corpses, there was no need to send out normal soldiers. An elite few. Perhaps 100 Knight Templar could win this battle and have a higher chance of victory than a larger force. Hinata accelerated her thoughts. Again and again and again. Because she had to ascertain her victory. And as if disturbing her thoughts, a pained expression appeared on Rahim's face. And, from within his chest, a new face arose. Rahim's pained expression quickly turned serene. Test, 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 can you hear me? Should I say, pleased to meet you? I am the Lord of Tempest, Rimuru. I'll say this in advance, this is a message. Even if you address this messenger, I won't hear you, so keep that in mind. The face said. A number of soldiers came at Rahim's sword drawn but were stopped by these words. That's a speech they probably had to hear. The Knights Templar couldn't hide their surprise. Whereas Hinata's expression did not change. She was merely awaiting the next words. Her head was calculating various possibilities. But her expression did not show it. That's just how much control she had over her heart and mind. Did the messenger suit your tastes? Good taste, right? Oh, but I didn't design him. Don't get any weird ideas. But let's forget about tastes. Let's get to the question at hand. I'm speculating how much you're planning to pay me to end this fight. I'll say this in advance, you started this fight. I have witnesses, so you can't overturn this fact. So what will you do? Personally, if you say sorry for this incident, I am willing to forgive you this time. But, should you refuse to make amends with monsters, then we will crush you with our entire force. Without any reserve, without any mercy, without a second thought, we shall crush you. Which is why, I ask you to carefully consider the next step. Is Hinata there? This message will only be played if your presence is recognized. But that aside, here's what I wanted to say. Well done attacking a person without listening to a single thing they had to say. A wonderful funeral you planned for me. But, too bad. I am alive. The next time you come at me, I will respond with my true power. But, I want to hold a serious conversation before that. So I'd appreciate it if you gave it some thought. If you still desire to fight me after that, then let this messenger know your response. The ones embedded in his body are the blood shadows, I think they are called. They killed my friends, so I cannot forgive them. So, I killed them and embedded their heads into this guy. This messenger is also dead. Yet I made him undead so that they continue to suffer. After receiving your reply, he will come back to me, so don't worry about that. Should you decide to dispose of him, he'll automatically disintegrate thanks to your skill that I analyzed. But if you choose to only kill him, that'll only increase his suffering, so keep that in mind. Currently, I'm headed off to the Demon Lord's will purchase banquet. So if you want to talk, decide upon it, and we'll talk after I return from there live. Chances are it's going to be a week from now, so keep that in mind. Well then, I'm looking forward to your reply. And ending this monologue, the message conclude. The Templars, their mouths astonished, looked at their trusted Hinata. Without being nervous by it, she met their gaze. She was busy processing the newly obtained information. There were a few things worth of note, but there was not time for that. Though he had a cold attitude, the message's content could not be mocked. The most important point was that disintegration had been analyzed. Now, should she fight, she probably wouldn't be able to use it on him. Perhaps he was only faking, but she could hardly depend on such empty optimism. Her biggest mistake was that she didn't notice his survival during their last battle. She felt a sense of regret. Yes, that rare feeling burned in her chest. He also revealed other important things. When he spoke of making amends with monsters, he must have had the church's doctrine in mind. So he's probably searching for a chance to make peace with them. But that's something that everyone, Hinata included, would describe as naive. And, lastly, that monster Rimuru was most definitely not lying during their last meeting. The fact that he was also a world traveler and that he reincarnated as a monster. That was probably true. His Japanese was far too natural. That was the nostalgic Japanese that could only come from that world. At some point in time Hinata had opened her previously closed eyes. And, without a word, she erased Reihim with disintegration. If Rimuru's words were true, then quickly erasing him would be his salvation. And, do not be tempted by him. Our creed is absolute. We should pay no heed to some lowly monster. She declared to the knights. Though she may have just contradicted herself, that wasn't something she could admit to. That is, if they were to ignore the monster's words, there was no need to disintegrate Reihim. It was because she believed him that she did it, but the knights didn't notice it. She was the Emperor's personal guard captain and led the knights herself. As their captain she had to serve as the absolute example. Thus leading the hardened Templars was the reason for her previous words. Now then, what should I do? She wasn't sure she could win this time. Though Hinata fell into depressed, her face did not show it. What a difficult problem befell her. But for Hinata, this was something she could just solve by continuing her calculations. So she thought.